Hello, and welcome back for another ACCA video, where in today's recording, I'm going to take you through how to pass your SBL examination with some top tutor tips going through the June 2025 pre-seen information. My name is James, I'm an ACCA qualified member, and I love to help out ACCA students around the world, just like the ones above me, as you can see, to pass your examinations, to get you that 50 plus, and go through my exclusive notes, where if you would like a copy of the pre-seen materials above me, click the link in the description of this video and you can access a copy yourself. I'm also delighted to say I'm associated and affiliated with Astranti, where they have some fantastic mock papers, pre-seen packs. Again, I've put the links in the description of this video for you to check them out. And for pure transparency, as always, on the channel, if you were to click anything and purchase anything, I'd be entitled to a small commission, which goes to supporting the channel. So as always, a massive thank you. We're going to get straight into these top tutor tips now, that if you've got the exam tomorrow, next week, put these into practice and they could be the difference in getting you that pass. So area number one for your notes to get down, first top tutor tip, is a deep understanding of the pre-seen notes. And this is where you've got to apply back to the scenario what you are set on the exam day. When you read through those requirements, go through it and say, right, what can I remember from the pre-seen materials that you can see on the screen? What was absolutely fundamental? So this is my short and sweet summary as to the absolute must areas that you have to be aware of. If you go down to page 7 on the notes, the key bit here for Deer & Shoes Limited, what we're looking at here is that you've got to be aware of, you can see in the dark green of Luckland, that is where they used to have all of their shoe manufacturing. They do a small part of it now, still there. That is for the formal shoes, which we'll come on to in a moment, but all of their mass production has been outsourced to Totland. They bring it back into the country and then sell to the customers. One mistake which students are definitely going to make on this exam. The next one, when it comes to the types of products that they sell, you can see on the right hand side now, the formal type of shoes are the ones that are still made, handcrafted in Luckland, and they are the ones with the higher profitability and margins. The rest are all mass produced, so that's semi-formal, casual and children's shoes. That is what is all done in Totland elsewhere. Really key for you to get down in your notes, because they could throw that in as to, did the student understand the pre-seen materials? Next, when we come on to the financial and non-financial information, the staff satisfaction has been pretty consistent at a rating of about 8, but the main thing for you to get down in your notes is the customer satisfaction is dropping, the market share is dropping, and when we look at some of the reasons behind that, you should be looking at the actual board of directors. You can see on the left-hand side, page 9 on there, we've got the executive chair, chief executive, and the other key thing for your notes is they talk about sustainability and the environment, because of the methods of creating shoes has an impact on the environment, but yet we have no officer actually in charge of the environmental impact or sustainability of the business itself. In terms of the ownership of Deer & Shoes, and this is where you've got to look on page 7, they have a founding family who owns 70% of the ownership. However, they have no involvement in the running of the business on a day-to-day basis. It's not listed as well, so we could get a question as to, from a governance or the 3 E's model, if it was to become listed, what are the things that they would need to change? What about the strategy of the business? And you can see from the models on the side there, the Johnson, Scholes and Whittington and the 6 capitals of integrated reporting could also be applied and tested. The last thing, if you come back up to the top in terms of challenges for the industry, innovation and development, industry body, there are lots of hints and insights here as to a potential SWOT or pestle analysis kind of question. So if you've downloaded the notes, go through them one by one. There is a lot of room for different models to be tested. And the key bit here is you've got to apply it specifically back to the scenario. So when you can see that I've underlined some of the key percentages, I've got my keynotes on the side, that is a major thing for you to be aware of. And also linking it to how they actually, from the manufacturing in Luckland, where do they have their sales? So there's lots of opportunity for exporting sales. whereas the main body of where they generate their revenue is from retail outlets and the online sales in Luckland. The final thing before we come on to our tip number 2 is the market share and the companies and key names. So you've got Rego, Flamingo, Parish, Better Be On there, and Deeren Shoes Limited. The company we are representing, they are the 5 largest companies. They own 45% of the market share. But look, the smaller organisations have 55% of the market share. And it's just, these are the fundamentals to have a deep understanding. There's only so much you can go into a short video on YouTube about, but this is where you need to be aware and have that deep understanding, apply that scenario back to the requirements on the exam day, and you've got a very good chance of getting the 50 plus. That is tip number 1, a deep understanding of the pre-C notes. Right, number 2, exam time management and exam techniques now. You've got 3 hours and 15 minutes in the exam, and as you can see from going through these pre-C materials, there is a heck of a lot of information on there. So we're looking at a basis of about 1.8 minutes per mark. Now, some students who I work with like to go on a 1.5 minutes or 1.6 minutes per mark, giving them a little buffer, but that is up to you. It's going to come down to how you get on with your mock papers and exam practice. There are 80 technical marks and 20 professional skills marks to break down, but the key exam tip here is make sure that you attempt 100 marks, because the external examiner continually says in their external examiner reports that for the students who get the 50 plus, it has a 50% pass rate in this exam. In other words, for every 2 students who come to the exam, 1 will pass. And one of the main reasons for that is that they answer 100 marks, and getting that time management is going to be absolutely critical. One way to actually do that is through mock papers. That's why I recommend Astranti. Again, you can click the link in the description below for their specific actual mock papers that link into these pre-C materials. And as you can see on the screen, it will be testing you on different models and theories like Pestle, Porter's 5 Forces, SWOT analysis, and the soft matrix. There is a lot of room for a variety of different theories to be tested, and therefore you need to be doing practice on a variety of them, applying it back to the scenario. In terms of keywords now, from an exam technique point of view, there are 3 key verbs for you to get down that relate to the SBL exam the external examiner tells us about, and they are evaluate, recommend, and discuss. If you get an evaluate question, that is where you need to pose arguments for and against with a conclusion and your professional judgment, again, linking back to the scenario and what you have analysed. Next, for recommend, it's all about having a balanced argument with coming to some form of advice, so being impartial on there and taking that professional judgment stance again. And lastly, the discussion part, weighing up the pros and cons, usually is linked into a SWOT analysis, so coming into points that you can see on the screen about the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats. The other final thing in terms of exam technique that I look for and help my students with is when you are actually writing your answer. So you can see on the screen where we've got lots of different theories. Let's say you got an 8-mark question. Now, some students would just do a full page of all writing and just try and get down as much as possible. That is the incorrect way to lay out your answer. What you need to do is identify the number of marks. Let's take 8 marks as an example. Now, in the SBL exam, usually speaking, to get 2 marks, it's about 3 sentences, maximum 4, because otherwise you haven't got time. You're not going to answer the 100 marks. And what you need to do is 8 marks will be 4 paragraphs separated out. So first paragraph, leave a line, second paragraph, leave a line, and so on and so forth, so that you are asking the marker to say, here in James's first paragraph of 3 to 4 sentences, can I give that 2 marks? I can see the student, and James has done 4 paragraphs for an 8-mark question. They have a potential chance of getting 8 out of 8. It helps you with writing a sufficient amount of detail on there and also laying it out, because if you're a marker, and I've been there so many times, imagine your paper is the last one on a Friday night or something like that, and they've got to do it. You want to make it as easy as possible rather than them having to go through a whole massive page on there. Sounds very, very not very technical, But trust me, when it comes to the marking process, imagine you were marking your own work. That's the best advice I can give you for our last exam technique. Does it look attractive? Is it easy and broken down based on the marks? And are you writing a sufficient amount for it? So that is area tip number 2, exam time management and exam techniques. Coming on to area number 3 now, these are the ACCA professional skills marks. Do not underestimate these 20 marks. They are imperative. That is why I've put them in my pre-C notes. I'll put my mouse on it now. So we have analysis, commercial acumen, communication, evaluation, and professional skepticism on there. This is where the students of SBL tend to get analysis, communication, and evaluation. They're the ones they tend to pick up on the most. But the ones that they fall short on are commercial acumen and professional skepticism. So what do they mean in layman's terms? Well, commercial acumen is the marker is looking for you to apply your answers back to the scenario and the type of organisation and the product or service they provide. So in this case, it's the shoe industry. You've got to talk about the processes behind how it's made. How does it actually function? And that's where you can see in the pre-C materials on page 3, they've included things like the shoe manufacturing process and the market structure and the different sales channels and the handcrafting and mass production. You don't have to be a shoemaking expert or anything on those lines. It's a case of having a reasonable understanding and applying it to the requirements that are set on there. In terms of professional skepticism, the key word for you to get down in your notes when it comes to the requirements on the day, and if they specifically refer to skepticism, is challenging the requirement and challenging the scenario, posing questions to the marker to say, have you really thought this through? And to say, hang on a second, is that correct? Or should we look at it from a different angle? That is what is going to get you the professional skills marks for skepticism and could be the difference in getting you the 50 plus. The other things in terms of getting those professional skills marks, which markers just do not like to see in students' answers, is being generic or saying the words of it and they. So instead of saying Deer and Shoes Limited, a student who really is being generic and really hasn't been very specific in their answers will go, oh, they sell shoes in these markets and it is a good thing and it did very well. You need to be specific in your answers. That is what is going to get you the marks. And don't just leave it to chance on there. Be really specific back to the scenario and also the unseen information provided on the exam day that you haven't seen before. It's also worth noting from a professional skills point of view, if English isn't your first language, do not panic at all. The markers take this into account as long as you showcase, even with some spellings or if the grammar's a bit off, it doesn't matter. Follow the techniques like the paragraphs we've talked about, being specific, applying the details you can see in the pre-C notes, and you've got the best chance of passing on there for it. So that is area and top tip number 3, the ACCA professional skills marks. And last but by no means least, my top tip number 4 is the ACCA resources to help you pass. First of all, to get down in your notes is the ACCA practice platform. When you are going through the pre-C notes like this, you have not got time on the exam day to be going through and fishing out all the bits on there. You have got to know where the figures have come from, and if you did have to refer back to something, maybe like one of the key stakeholders on the screen you can see, you just know exactly what page to go to, and it takes you about 15-20 seconds on there maximum. You have not got time to waste, and it's all about applying the pre-seen information to save you as much amount of time as possible and getting your screen laid out, whether you're doing the exam at home or in a centre, so you are as time efficient as possible. It's also worth noting the unseen information provided on the exam day. You've got to take that into account, and that's why by doing mock papers it's going to help you. There will be more information to process, and you've got to link up in your mind where it overlaps with other areas of the pre-seen information. Another good tip to do is to actually copy and paste the requirements that are set over to your word processor document on there that is marked by the marker. This means that you're not having to go back from the requirement, back to the scenario, back to any further exhibits. And if you are resitting the SBL exam, I can't stress enough reading the external examiner's report, going through the technical articles on any sort of theories or sort of other models that you're struggling on, because they show examples in there and set out the expectation of the standard of answer that you should be looking for. The final thing, which is an underrated resource, is ACCA also have their own YouTube channel. Check out the most recent debrief videos. They are also fantastic, along with the usual things on the website and other resources on there. So that is tip number 4, the ACCA resources to help you pass. And along with following my notes on here, this will be the difference in getting you the pass for your SBL exam for the June 2025 sitting. And breathe, James. Well, guys, I hope you've enjoyed today's video. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any other videos I'm going to be doing ahead of the exam. Click the link into the description to actually download your copy of my SPL notes and check out those mock papers for Astranti. They are also linked below. They're going to be huge to getting you the pass on there, because you need to do the practice 2 times under exam conditions, and you can even get feedback from markers. So what I'll do now is I'll put another SPL video above me. I'll see you on the other side now, and best of luck for your exam.